Welcome to Crazy Shit in Real Estate, a weekly podcast where I walk you through some of the wildest, most unbelievable stories you'll hear from the world of real estate. If you like real estate and you love crazy, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. I'm Leigh Brown. It's nice to meet you.
Great. I'm Jefferson Lilly. Your new podcast, your next podcast guest.
Yeah, the new podcast actually launched yesterday, and it's got episode 1. This one's heading into year 5.
Good for you.
Yeah, these are my passion projects. They're not monetized because I haven't figured that out yet. So if you know things about that, I'm looking for some CBD company to sponsor me.
I don't know. We haven't. I've got my podcast going. I started the first mobile home park podcast about 4 years ago. We haven't yet monetized it. I think some of it's like you got to be consistently over 20,000 downloads, and we kind of got to around 15,000, and it just wasn't enough to like sell ads. But who knows? But I get some deal flow, and I get interested investors, and so I sort of indirectly monetize my podcast that way.
I do love mobile homes. You know, being in North Carolina, I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I have one under contract right now, and it's the first time I have sold a double wide. The whole thing's got polybutylene piping in it. And I was like, shit, it's bad enough to have a stick house with PB, but now I got a trailer house with PB. And so I was talking to the buyers about it, and they're very concerned. Like, yeah, we can change out the pipes. We know how to do this with polybutylene.
Yeah.
And the wife was concerned about tearing up the walls. And I said, sugar, I said, that's the good part about buying a trailer house. You can buy a new panel. We don't have to tear out a bunch of drywall and sheetrock. We're going to take out that piece of wall, put in another piece of wall. Good as new.
Good as new. There you go.
I do think people overlook the fact that you can do maintenance on a trailer house in a very cost-effective manner if you've taken any kind of care of it over time. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, they're basically just a giant shoebox. None of the interior walls, at least on a single wide, none of the interior walls are load bearing. Even on a double wide, not many of them are. And so much of the stuff is below, like the air ducts and a lot of the water pipe and the electric. You just crawl under the trailer.
It's convenient.
And you just see it running. It's easy to access from the bottom.
Well, there was one I sold one time that was not easy. I'll never forget this. I'd only been in real estate for a couple of years at the time, and my dad was still in the business, and we sold a double wide, and we crawled up underneath. Guess how many piers were under that double wide, Jefferson?
None. Was it set up on tires?
No, there were 32 piers under that double wide. I said, this is the most secure property
that's a
I've
lot.
ever seen in my life. Nothing moving in that house. And they weren't jerry-rigged like where you make your own little trusses. These were like legit piers. They were very secure. But anyway, there's certain things that happen in real estate you don't forget. So I'd love to know your backstory, where you're located, how you became the podcast king of, frankly, manufactured housing / mobile homes. What your story is. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah. So I got into this business 13 years ago, just thinking I was going to buy an apartment building. I've been working in high tech. I'm out here in San Francisco. I had worked for a decade, 3 different venture-backed startups, up, down, sideways, all the way through the .com boom and bust, and was just looking again for some passive income, and then started looking at multifamily, and then just by looking on like LoopNet, discovered mobile home parks because they kept popping up, like this 1 in 100 little multifamily asset that was a 10 cap, and all the apartments were at an 8 cap. And of course, I initially thought, well, that's
ATM over here. It's an ATM.
Huh? It looks interesting, yeah.
They
so
are.
Just
they're
like,
ATM.
yeah. So initially, I thought, like, well, that's absurd. I'm not buying a friggin' trailer park, But I kept getting hit over the head with like, oh, here's another one, and it's priced lower. So I looked into it, and basically, I think it's the best niche going because, say, unlike apartments, you actually cannot, pretty much by law or by zoning change, but really over the last 30, 40 years, every city and county has pretty much outlawed any new construction of mobile home parks. So that makes it interesting, simply because the supply curve is fixed. Then, of course, something like 1% of these get plowed under every year and get developed into a fancy apartment building or shopping mall or self-storage or something else. So the supply curve's actually shrinking about 1% a year, and all those displaced mobile homes got to go somewhere. So they're infilling into the remaining mobile home parks, and then the population grows maybe 1% a year, and you kind of get another 1% demand growth. So just the whole supply demand curve thing makes it particularly compelling. Plus, then almost all of our tenants own their own homes, which means we don't have to maintain those proverbial leaky toilets and leaky roofs. We maintain the land, but mowing and plumbing is a lot less expensive than taking care of the actual improvements. So we've got very favorable sort of macroeconomic supply demand curve imbalance. And sort of at the microeconomic property level, we've got very favorable economics because we don't have too significant of a repair and maintenance bill.
So now
I bought my first park and then bought another and then started raising money. So I've raised like $36 million now and bought 33 mobile home parks and have 5 others under contract that I'm closing in the next 5 weeks.
So you mentioned the biggest challenge that mobile home parks do have, which is NIMBYism. Nobody wants trailers near them because they've got such a negative conception of what they are in their minds. So they land in either rural parts of counties or undeveloped areas, or they're that last grandfathered in pocket. And it's interesting to me because you're out in one of the most expensive places to live on the planet. And all joking aside, mobile homes and manufactured housing are truly the backbone of affordable housing and always have been, but nobody wants it around. So I'm curious, from your perspective, you live in an enlightened area, right? What was the hardest thing for you mentally to overcome to become an investor in something that has such a punchline to it? Everybody makes fun of trailers, and those of us that have lived in them in our lives, we know it's just a house.
Yeah, exactly. So just to be clear, I'm in San Francisco, but none of my properties are even anywhere in the state of California at all.
Well, I mean, we kind of guessed that because, you know, but you got Arizona nearby. Arizona's got a lot of manufactured housing.
Arizona's good. Yeah, I don't own there. I did just buy 6 weeks ago in Roswell, New Mexico, next state over from Arizona. So still waiting for the little aliens to be paying their rent on time. But hey, little green men pay with little green dollars. That's good.
And we're cool with that. That's cash.
That's right. But yeah, I don't, I've always kind of been a fairly independent thinker, for better or for worse. So it wasn't that hard, but I remember one gal. So I was single at the time when I got into the business. I remember it was at a fancy cocktail party atop Nob Hill, kind of like the neighborhood here in San Francisco, fundraiser for something. And, she asked me what I did. And I said, "Oh, I own mobile home parks." And she sort of went, "Huh," and turned around and walked away.
That's a great qualifying question. Hey, friends, if you're listening or watching and you're in the dating pool, you should use that as a qualifier and see if it runs off people, because be wary of judgy people. She wasn't thinking about the ATM aspect, was she?
She was not. No, I guess she was looking for some fancy .comer.
Well, how did you get past that preconceived notion, though? Because when you don't know what you're buying, or you've never lived in one, you don't have a lot of personal, it's pretty much anything. It's not just manufactured housing, it's apartment complexes, it's commercial real estate. Something you don't do every day in your personal life can be something different to jump into. So what did you use as an evaluation model besides the cap rates? Because obviously that was the thing that kept repeating itself to you over and over. The cap rates are different here.
So I actually put together sort of an unofficial advisory board of about 10 guys that all owned mobile home parks. And I would run deals by them. And they'd say, "Jefferson, no way, here's why," or "Jefferson, that's a great deal, here's why," or "Hey, I don't really know, but the key issue for this deal is X. Like, go figure out X, and then you'll know if it's going to be a good park to buy." So yeah, just learning from folks that actually had been there, done that, and owned parks was enormously helpful.
How did you find those people? How did you create a relationship where they allowed you to pick their brains? Because sometimes really successful people hate being attacked by a novice, but you obviously found 10 people who said, "We are willing to teach you what we know." I love this.
I was just out there, as it were, telling people what I was doing, and I got a lot of strange looks or, just like, sorry, I can't help you type comments. But some people would be like, one guy from my church just said like, oh yeah, hey, you know what? My dad used to own a trailer park, and that was what sent our whole family to Europe every summer for an awesome vacation. Here's my dad's number, like, call him. So it was a lot of that, sort of just putting the word out there. And then I did also find some guys online as well that again had or did own mobile home parks. So that's how I found them. That was pretty helpful.
So what's the most impactful failure you've had in being an investor in mobile home parks?
Probably just learning that you really, really cannot trust government. So specifically,
wait a minute, oh, there's my surprise face.
Yeah. So, that first park that I bought had a sewage lagoon, which sounds awful for those of us living on the coasts, but in the great Midwest, they're quite common.
We are the number one pork state in the country. Thank you. We know about a hog lagoon.
Sewage lagoon. Okay. So I got in writing from the government, the local Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, that they had inspected the lagoons and they were built to code. And lo and behold, that was 2 owners prior, probably 15 years prior to my ownership, that letter was dated. And then the DEQ came along a couple of years after I bought it and started snooping around and said, hey, these haven't been built to code. And, that piece of paper, like, that guy who signed it doesn't work here at the DEQ anymore. Even if he did, it doesn't matter. You're still obligated to make sure your lagoons are built to code. So I had to spend something around $510,000 bringing the lagoons up to code. I'd only paid $450,000 for the park. So
you
I'm
said
now
$500,000.
$500,000. Yeah.
To the government.
No, it was to private contractors. It was still out of pocket.
The government.
Yeah. To private contractors to get it rebuilt. So
do you still own
that was ugly.
You're still upside down on that one. Did you keep it so you can get your numbers back in line?
Oh no, well, I mean, the property's appraised for more than 3 times what I paid for it. So I bought it right. But indeed, the doing diligence, at least on private utilities, anything from the government is not worth the paper that it's written on. So
what would you have done differently? Would you have just gone back and made one more visit to the county health department to make sure those dates were accurate in retrospect?
No, what I do now is I generally don't buy properties on private utilities. Certainly not on sewage lagoons or packaging plants. Those are the most expensive things to maintain. So almost everything else I bought is all private utilities, city water, city sewer. And that way, if something goes wrong, the infrastructure cost doesn't fall to me.
Gotcha. So one of the benefits of mobile homes and manufactured housing is economies of scale when it comes to parts. I was not even joking about the panel in this one that I'm selling right now, because you can have a storage warehouse of parts for them. So with the size of the operation you've built now, have you also built up a secondary market in trailer parts and repair pieces and in repossessed and relocated mobile homes from other locations? Are you creating multiple markets now, Jefferson?
No, generally not. So we focus on buying, mobile home parks. We certainly buy some homes, bring them in, fix them up, and put them out on rent to own contracts. That said, we just don't have the time or the accounting infrastructure to try and keep track of what I call a boneyard. All those parts, the water heater that would fit in a 1984 to 1989 Starlighter deluxe trailer, like we can't go there. So we'll just outsource all that, call somebody else to come in. Even if somehow we've just done away with a water heater, in another park or something, we just don't have the bandwidth to do that accounting. We'll just say like, hey, here it is, fix it up, send us the bill when the work is done. But yeah, so we don't really make secondary markets like that. But we do buy homes and generally bring them in and infill the parks. So it's kind of a one-way thing. The homes come in and they tend to not leave.
So do you help other people get involved in these? Are you acting as a broker of parks at this point? Or are you still primarily a purchaser if the numbers work?
Right. I'm a principal, not an agent. So I'm buying parks. I do have that podcast out there, however, that does help other people get into the business. That's the Mobile Home Park Investors Podcast.
What's the crazy shit you've learned? Not the cool number stuff or the shocking cap rates, but the one thing you saw besides your $500,000 lagoon, because I'm still kind of having an upset stomach over that. What's the one thing you saw you were like, holy shit?
Well, I've got a couple funny stories. So that first park is out in Oklahoma, kind of in Tornado Alley. And so I asked my manager, a gentleman, Mr. Lutz. He was about 70 something, older than I am. So he was my employee, but I always addressed him as Mr. And I said, so what do you do, sir, when the tornadoes come? And I'm expecting him to say like, oh, I go running and screaming for the hills and we all cry and we're scared. But no, he says, Jefferson, we watch them. I said, you watch the tornadoes? He said, well, yeah, boy. I mean, the tornadoes only move at, 5 or 10 miles an hour and they go to the northeast. And so if it's already to the east or the west or the north of you, you just watch it and it kind of keeps moving away. He said, of course, it's a problem if it's to your southwest because you're then in its path to the northeast. You still watch it. If it does come close, he says, you get in your car and you drive away. So that was kind of funny. That he watches the tornadoes rather than runs from them. So then this is roughly May, June. I think it's my first year of owning my first mobile home park. So he tells me this story. And a couple of weeks later, still in tornado season, I wake up in the morning, I check my email, and it says from him, the email is entitled Park Destruction. And I just think like, oh my God, we got hit by a tornado. I mean, I'm insured, but this is going to be bad. And so with great trepidation, I open up the email. It's like, Jefferson, those darn kids have broken the lock off the well house. May I spend $30 and go buy a new lock for the well house, Mr. Lutz? So I was like, yes, Mr. Lutz, you can spend $30 on a new lock for the well house. Thank you. So anyway, there's a couple of funny stories from very early on, my early days in the mobile home park business.
Well, you think about it though, but that's probably the first thing people think of with mobile homes and trailer parks is tornadoes, because all the jokes, what's the divorce got in common with a tornado? Well, a southern divorce. Either way, somebody's losing a trailer. But you think about the reality of it, and I love his matter-of-fact approach to life. He's just, we're going to see what happens, or we're going to deal with it when it comes, which is kind of like handling your mobile home parks and rent collections. How do you handle some of the details in your business when you're in California and your parks are all over the place? Have you actually gotten technology involved in the mobile home business?
A lot, yeah. So a couple of things. So for instance, first off, we take no cash. So our tenants have to actually pay online. Even our prospective tenants have to apply online and pay their $40 application fee online.
That's wildly different than most mobile home park investors, right? It's wildly different.
We're trying to be automated. So we run on a backbone, a couple of technology sort of backbones. One of them is Rent Manager, which is software specifically designed for multifamily properties. Anyway, so it's Rent Manager that then enables tenants to apply online, and the application happens online. Now, if they're approved, they've already got their online account set up with us. Now they can sign their documents, their lease online, and they can then make their security deposit and their first month's payment online. And of course, even set it up to auto withdraw. So doing stuff like that helps us track from a great distance, helps us track collections, vacancy, make sure that the managers are putting out late notices and filing evictions as needed. So that's a big help. And then, of course, we make extensive use of email and text and box.com, which is something like Dropbox. It's cloud storage. So, photos and legal agreements and other things generally go up into box.com, and we share those. And then I've got currently a regional manager, and probably will bring on a second regional manager over the next quarter or two. But they then really manage the managers for me. Again, make sure they're maintaining curb appeal, picking up trash, repaving or fixing potholes as needed, making sure tenants are picking up junk in their yards, and again, making sure they're doing the collections work. So so that each park has an on-site manager, and then they're overseen by a regional manager, and then I kind of oversee the regional managers, but I focus really more on raising capital and finding deals. So yeah, we've got a bit of an organization built, some systems, some people, and as we go, I'm sure in a year we'll have even more systems and more people.
So besides the fact that our listeners and viewers should totally go check out your podcast if they want to know more of the inside scoop on investing in mobile manufactured housing, what's the one little tidbit you think our audience should leave with today?
Oh, I think it's hugely important, whatever you go after, real estate or other business, to get that sort of unofficial advisory board, get people. I know at least I learn best and fastest from other people rather than from book learning, although I certainly did some of that, but just get in contact with other people that have been there, done that, and learn from them.
Perfect. Jefferson, I appreciate you coming on the show and giving us an entirely different perspective on something a lot of people may turn their nose up at. Maybe they'll turn their eyes on it now and think about it differently, which is frankly how we grow in life. So I wish you all the big success and look forward to hearing what you do next in this very intriguing niche space.
Okay. Thank you, Leigh.
Guys, all of the links to his podcast will be in the show notes for this episode. So if you didn't write it down, don't worry. Go to the show notes and click, boom, boom, hit subscribe, go learn. I would imagine you could probably reach out to him if you had questions about investing or what he could do to help you become successful in this space. Jefferson, you'll do that, right? You'll reach back if they reach out.
Yeah, parkavenuepartners.com.
Shazam. We'll include all the links, guys.
Okay.
So make sure that you give us a subscription, give us 5 stars, and make sure you tune back in because we'll have a new perspective on real estate for you. And until then, we'll see you around the crazy shit of real estate. Thanks, Jefferson.
Thank you.
If you are listening to this episode and you need to tell us something about your crazy life in or around real estate, then tweet me at Leigh Brown or reach me on any of the social networks. That's if you're a broker, realtor, investor, inspector, lender, or just a regular normal human being who happens to have dealt in real estate. Subscribe for more episodes, and as always, we are thrilled that you joined us for some crazy shit in real estate. See you next time.